Razia Aziz, Head of Customer Retention in Whittard. And before I start this more of a storytelling with you in terms of Whittard's transformation journey, I just wanted to ask you a question, very simple question. Before today, before opening that box, how many of you have interacted with Whittard brand? Ooh. What do I say? 30%, 40%? 40%? Now, I'm going to stop at that point, because I'll tell you later on why I asked that question and how does it relate to the data-driven decision. So I'm going to start now. Before I do that, I think because it might get a little bit technical, it's important to tell you a little bit of background about my career history. I've been in this job marketing kind of landscape for a good 24 years now. I started my career in 2000 as a graduate engineer for telecoms. That's my first degree. I joined Vodafone, and I was with Vodafone for 7 years. And believe it or not, some of you were probably not born, but I'm one of those engineers who used to test a GPRS handset and see if it's working or not on the M4. So sit on a car, test for the signal. There was no 3G. It was GSM 1800, just a voice call, no data. GPRS was the first thing. And Vodafone just paid the highest amount for 3G license, and they were desperately trying to make it work. And us as engineers were sitting in a room trying to think, if a customer is making a voice call and then someone decides to browse, do we drop their call because we have enough congestion in the traffic, or do we keep the data? Who should we give priority to? Fast forward 24 years later, no one cares about voice. Everyone is on data. So I don't think that decision would have been that difficult. So yeah, 7 years with Vodafone. Started with engineering. Then I spent about 4 years with customer insight. Anything you can think of data, data analytics, data modeling, campaigns driven by data. I've done it all a good 20 years ago. Big data was not that much of a buzz back in those days. After that, I was headhunted by a company in Abu Dhabi, the primary, I'll say, multiple service provider in terms of mobile, fixed line, internet, and TV services. And I joined them and then worked there for 4 years. I was heading the retention department there. And the key thing was that they were a monopoly for a good 30 years. And then they introduced Do, which everyone has probably heard of now. And there's competition, and suddenly there was a need to retain those customers. So I was hired. I worked there for 4 years, went through many challenges, came back to UK, took a small break for the 2 kids I have. Within that time, I completed my MBA with Warwick Business School. And then back in the job market again, majority of the time doing consultancy work, mainly as a data strategist, as a data consultant. And then 2.5 years ago, joined Whittard. So that's the point. And today, I'm going to talk to you about how that journey started. Because it wasn't just my journey. I think Whittard was dragged along with that journey, and how I transformed that journey with Whittard's data infrastructure, and then today, where we are today. Cool. So a little bit of history. A lot of it, I think I was listening to Lana, my new friend from yesterday. Heritage, she talked about. We're also a heritage brand, just like a century out of Osprey, London. 1886, when Mr. Walter Whittard started the business at an age of 25. And he started the business as a tea blending, coffee blending, doing on-site. Everything was on-site. The surprising fact about Mr. Whittard, which you don't highlight enough, is back in 1886, he was doing targeted marketing. He was actually serving the lawyers of the courts. And there used to be a tea called Barrister's Refresher. This is targeting, what I call. We selected those people for those kind of segment. In 1935, he passed away. The business went into his sons, Mr. Hugh Whittard and Dick Whittard. But they were facing challenging times at that time because the First World War was rising at that time. And then the business got hit in 1939. The warehouse was damaged because there was a bomb there due to the Blitz. In 1940, the warehouse was completely destroyed by the Great Fire of London. Everyone thought Whittard is finished. But the business revived again in 1941, where the brothers took the business to a new location, 111 Fulham Road in Chelsea, and started the business again. Fast forward, there was an accident, I think, in the 1970s to 80s, when one of the brothers passed away. And then after 5 years, the other brother kind of let the business go. Today, the business is run by an equity firm. Current state of mind, we have 42 stores in UK at the moment. And dare I say we are counting, because we're constantly looking for strong UK presence, strong store locations. And this retail presence is supported by also a digital presence, which is whittard.co.uk. Right? We're also growing globally, but what we have is, if you look at the gray areas are the countries that we serve. We were already in Asian market like China, US, Europe as well, but our primary focus from this year onwards has been growth and expansion in US. We also serve those countries via our .com website. Now these, I thought I'll go into it because they're very kind of connected to the vision and the mission that Whittard has. We want to be brilliant at the basics. And our strategic direction is mainly focused around those visions, because those are our success pillars. If you look at the key message here, turbocharge our domestic care, you can clearly see why the retention department was set up, because we wanted to focus on our UK market. We wanted to focus on our existing customer database. We are having international growth, but it's very targeted. Because initially when we started, like long time ago, I heard, 2.5 years ago, that we were trying to serve all the countries as we could. But now we are very, very focused on the markets that we want to go into. It's very targeted. Customer-led, fueled by data. I think needless to say, that's where I fit in. That's why we talk about data. This is a business which is thriving to understand the customers. Because if we don't understand the customers, we don't know how to retain them. We don't know how to serve them. And this is the heart, at the moment, it is in the hub of all the things that we do. And then the third one, which is high-performing cross-functional team. Very important in the sense because we also do, other than B2C, we do B2B as well, and we have an international team as well. And we all work together, so the brand image to like serving the customers, and overall the customer experience remains consistent and seamless. So today, outlining the story of the deck today is focused on customer-led, fueled by data. Everything you will see from this slide onwards will be about data. I will be speaking, I've kind of decided this actually this morning, that I'll be speaking less about marketing because I think Lana covered enough. Ivan kind of set out the foundation of the deck that I've done. And when I was listening to him very carefully, I was like, my God, this is exactly what I'm going to be talking about. So let's focus on marketing, but let's talk about the scenario behind the marketing that we do, which is the data that comes in, and how do we tidy it up so that we can do what we want to do. A very lengthy message, but the way I kind of keep it in my mind when I look at it is there's the pink bits that I've highlighted, best practice methodologies and techniques. So we want to implement a strategy using best practice and methodologies, and those are the methodologies and some of the techniques we'll touch in the future slides as we move forward. So that's one thing. If there's anything I want you guys to remember while we go through the next slides is maximum value, number one. Number two, present and potential customers from them. Personalized customer experience and operational efficiency forwards. And you'll see why, because it's about to get quite graphical. So before I go into the graph and the numbers and explain how those techniques are applied, keeping those key levers in mind, let's talk about a little bit of history about tech stack, because Ivan kind of shared this slide where there was in big bold letters, right-hand side was the tech team and left-hand side was the marketing team. And it kind of reminded me of the story that the conversation I had 2 years ago when I joined Whittard, and I looked at the tech stack, or the lack of it. And I spoke to my tech team and I said, like, we should have a CDP. Because we, at the moment, have got international data coming from there, retail data coming from here, the web data coming from there. They were coming from the e-com website. We use Salesforce, they were trickling from there. With a daily ETL scheduler that runs overnight. Some of them come 7 days later. So you can imagine, when it comes to reporting or seeing what's happening with the customers, there's no such thing as real time. 2 years ago, we were looking at data or report or analysis that was at least a week old, if not a month. That means that we get insight after a month of a customer who, I don't know, bought hot chocolate. A month later, we find out, oh, they bought a hot chocolate from Covent Garden. What are we going to do about it? It's too late. So I went to the tech team and I said, we should have a CDP. And he goes, oh, don't worry. We have a license. We have a license for a CDP, but we haven't activated it. Oh, great. Let's activate it. Why should we? Because we're going to bring all this data and make it like a 360 view of a customer, and we won't have the disparate systems anymore. It will be really good. One single source of truth. All this Lala convinced him, very excited. But we don't have resource to do it. Well, hire some resource then. Why should I? Because we're doing all this work in the data, but it's not there yet. But it will be when you bring in the resource. But what would they do? They need to look after an empty CDP platform. We can't do it. I was feeling like I was having a chicken and egg conversation with him. The debate went on for weeks and months, and I couldn't get like any answer out of it. And that's perfectly kind of played out by Ivan when he said that there is constant an argument. Marketing team is constantly saying, I want this, because the business has an objective. But the tech team is talking about practicality, resource. Can we maintain this? Can we support this? Because once it's up, then we need to look after it. We need to maintain integrity of it. So there was a period of my time in the retention team, which I spent as a data consultant. I put that hat on and said, look, nothing is going to move on. I took ownership of all the business definitions that we want to, like, how do we define a single customer view? What are the systems that need to come in? If a customer has shopped in the retail, and then at the same time they went to the website, can the website recognize that this customer has actually made a transaction in Covent Garden as well? So those are the business questions, and we spent quite a bit of time on actually looking onto all these data sources and then creating that data warehouse, which was finally cleansed, deduped, and I kind of quote-unquote deduped customer data. It's very important to remember, because end of the day, I could be a Razia Aziz with my personal email ID in the shop. I do mystery shopping sometimes. I use my personal email ID. And then I use my work address on the website because I want staff discount. We want to know about the customers because we want to learn about their wants and needs. Again, this is the why analysis. Why do we want to learn about their, understand their behavior? It's because we want to know how can we serve them better. If you are a tea drinker, I think there is a interesting fact about myself. I don't drink tea or coffee or hot chocolate. So I'm like, don't ask me what am I doing on Whittard. But yes, whenever I look at a coffee customer and a tea customer, there are a few that kind of overlap. They drink tea and coffee, but some of them are like very exclusive to their category. I'm a coffee drinker, I'm not tea. It's like a very clear divide. And we want to understand that. We really want to understand that how many customers that are tea drinkers are really tea drinkers, how many of them are multi-category drinkers, how many of them are hot chocolate drinkers. And every single day we run that analysis, every single time we do a survey, every single time we scrape the internet and get the sentiment of Whittard customers, we learn something new that throws us off, and we begin from scratch. But the reason, because we learn about their wants and needs from Whittard, because we want, and this is something, again, Ivan has touched on it, we want to be able to conduct marketing intervention. I know as marketeers we've heard a lot about the word campaign. We want to execute campaigns. What I call them is marketing intervention. The reason behind that is every single customer goes through their life cycle, and each of the life cycle will have different behavior. It's not going to be same all the way. It depends on where they are at the customer life cycle stage. So we want to understand when exactly we want to have that intervention in their life. Just like Ivan shared Jessica's profile. She doesn't want to be bombarded. She wants the right communication with the right offering at the right time. And for that, we absolutely need to know, how do we do it? So there's 3 things I'll cover. Customer life cycle. How does it make us deliver the engaging content that we want to do? And finally, how does it actually push us to do channel strategy? Now, as I highlighted before, we are retail, with strong presence of retail. We are digital as well. We are global as well, so we have a .com website as well. How do we strategize which channel is the best way? What is the touch point where we should touch these customers? Is it an okay idea to go with a web proposition for a customer who's never shopped on web? It's not. We have to be retail specific if they're shopping in retail. And all this comes from data and insight, something that when I joined Whittard, I worked on, because without that foundation layer, I don't think I could have done any of it. And Ometria, obviously, at that time was not even in the scenario. We were just assessing the current situation, see what we can do. So let's look at a typical customer journey. We could be from different businesses. I've met some people from the fashion industry, beauty industry, yes, beverage industry, all consumable products. Every journey is pretty much same in the way when it goes to the life cycle. You see a customer who shows some kind of, gives some kind of signal that they have a purchase intent with your brand. You'll see that. Then eventually some of those customers will make that purchase. Out of those some customers, there'll be some who will continue to spend with you. Of course, in the retail industry, we know there are a lot of one-offers. They'll never shop once and then disappear. Then as you see, the spend decreases. You'll see that the customer spend behavior is changing. It's like decreasing. Then what we do is we identify a sweet spot where we know that this customer is going to lapse. So a bit late in the journey, but whatever we could have done, they're about to leave, and then they lapse. Very generic. Now, if you look at the lifetime, that varies. Someone might have, like my customer's lifetime is 24 months. Someone said 36 months. I think usually we use 12 to 13 months. But that varies. What we want is this. Remember I said maximum value from potential customers and existing customers. We want the graph to look like this lighter shade of pink. There's not too much we can do to change their life cycle, but what we can do is through the right kind of marketing intervention, we can get them or influence their behavior so that as long as they're with us, there's incrementality in their spend with us. Now we can play with different levers. We can convince them to like increase their frequency of spend, depending if their AOV is what, 20 pounds. Let's get them spend more with us. Maybe they're a high value spender, spending 100 pounds. Frequency is not the thing. What we need to do is nurture them, look after them well enough because they're high value customers. But the important thing is, as long as they're here with us, we need to make maximum incrementality out of them. Now, intervention techniques. Segmentation. Everyone has pretty much heard of segmentation. I'm not going to talk about segmentation today. What I'm going to talk about is micro-segmentation, which is a layer below the typical segmentation. We've heard of RFM segmentation, which is the highest level of segmentation anyone can do on their database. Interesting fact is, I remember from Vodafone, we were doing what we call is a demographic level segmentation. We were segmenting the database based on their age. And then one day when we were micro-segmenting, we found out that majority of the people who were sending an SMS back in those days were 55 plus. Imagine 20 years ago, when mobile was very new, it's the 55 plus years olds were actually SMSers. We never thought of it. We just thought like the young generation is using SMS because mobile is such a new thing. Micro-segmentation gives us deeper insight of these customers. We get to understand more about them. It's not only about what value it is. It's also about if they are a high-value customer, why are they shopping retail? Why not web? If they are a web customer, what is stopping them from shopping in retail? Is it because they don't have a shop nearby? Or what's the kind of issue? Why do they shop with us? Why do they leave? Why do they shop multi-category? There's a lot of things we need to understand. Once we have that micro-segmentation, we can then really hone down on the personalization of the campaign. And that's another thing that we think about a lot. Is it just about personalization? Or is it about also like highlighting, last time you shopped in Covent Garden, did you know that we have an offer going on in Covent Garden now? Come back and shop with us. With that level of insight, without it, we cannot be personalized enough. And that leads us to like offer the right product at the right place, at the right price as well. Now, important thing is not everyone is discount heavy. We are at the moment thinking you give 15% off and the whole flood of people will come back. They don't. We've tried it, they don't. Loyal customers who leave us, they don't leave us because of money. They leave us for all sorts of other reasons. So it's not only about price, it's also about the right offering. Now I'll go through like 5 clusters very quickly, running out of time. These are the 5 clusters of the graph that I shared with you. We have lead, customers have not spent. What are we doing in terms of converting those leads? Our objective is obviously to nurture them. I think Lana covered a lot about automation emails. We have something similar as well, welcome journey. But one of the things I want to highlight, I think, is a tip, which we do is very different to other market, is outcome of it is quality conversion. You will see a lot of like pop-ups that come in and say, get 10% off when you sign up to the newsletter. We don't do it. Because what we noticed is people join the database, they make their first transaction, and then it becomes very difficult for us to convert them into a second conversion. Hence, churn rate rises, and what happens is we drop in the quality of the customers we acquire. What we do, however, get them to really register with genuine interest, sign up to newsletter, and within the welcome journey, at a certain stage, if they have not converted, we'll then give them a nudge and give them the discount. First-time purchases. Now, this is like falls in the back bucket of existing customers. I decided to like break it down into 2 further buckets, the first-timers and the repeat buyers. It's important because I think I've noticed in the retail industry, shifting that gear from first to second purchase is very, very critical. It doesn't happen, it's so damn hard. It just doesn't work. Simply because they probably bought a gift. Whittard is known to be a very giftable kind of product offering, and it's so difficult to like convert them. What we also have is like, if we didn't have enough problems, tourists. A lot of tourists who come in and buy our products. No matter what you do, you can't convert them into a second purchase. They already left the country. Funny thing is they actually leave their email behind. We don't know why. So that is another thing that we need to do, is to really hone down into those first-time purchasers. Who are they? Are they the gifters or are they self-purchasers? What can we do if they're a gifter? What can we do to convert them as a self-purchaser? So we do all sorts of campaign based on that segment. But the important thing is a relevant conversion. That's important. We don't want to convert tourists. We don't want to convert. We definitely want to convert some of the gifters, as long as we find them. But we definitely want to convert people to a state where they can replenish, go into the replenishment mode. Existing customer, clearly we want to increase the repeat purchase. We have got cross-sell, upsell opportunity. So with the existing customers, we constantly look at them, what their behavior is, and we try to give them an offer that is suitable for them. The more they stay with us, the more we learn about their behavior, the more precise we can be in terms of how we target them and what we want from them. And then finally, this is what my job is all about. Everything else is not. That wasn't part of the role, is actually reduce risk of churn. One of the primary objectives of the department. What we do is we identified a sweet spot where we have seen that customers will be lapsing in the next X months. And it's the sweet spot where if you give them a very convincing offer, there's a chance of their return. That sweet spot is very important because if you're slightly late, they won't come back. If you're slightly earlier, then you actually wasted your money because they would have converted anyway. So that's the sweet spot we play with, and we're doing a lot of campaign at the moment, trying to learn, test, see what works, what doesn't. And then finally, when a customer has left us, what we tend to do is win them back. Very quickly, success rate so far. So this is, we've been with Omitria, which was our first kind of my MarTech. It's more like my trophy that I took to my CEO and say, this is the work we have done with the data, everything that I've done. Here's the visual element of it. And believe it or not, before even I adopted Omitria, other teams started using Omitria. And they're currently using it more than I do, simply because it gives them access to data. It gives them access to insights that we never had before. All the tidying up that I did at the back end, we never had the chance to see it. Now we can through Omitria. We have 48% increase in email revenue because we've only onboarded Omitria. It's not been a year yet. So I've just compared H2. Repeat rate has increased by 9%. And win back, which is a reactivation rate, has increased by 19%. Our challenges still remain. Link rate. Not everyone wants to give their email address. When they do, they don't opt in. When they do opt in, they unsubscribe. So those challenges are still there. And we're trying to address it with multi-channel campaign strategy, going with direct mailing, activating first-party data on paid media. Using SMS is a potential we're thinking about. But this is how we are trying to address the challenge. But the biggest thing I think we are doing is we're about to launch an omni-channel loyalty program this year. I think this is it. Thank you very much for listening to me.